Hello everyone, this is Tiffany of Whitney and Tiffany Photography, and we are so excited to share a new collection with you that is going to be perfect for all of your images, but especially your fine art images. So I'm starting with this image, and I did use our skin smoothing action, and I did some liquefying of her hair, and she had a bracelet on here, and I'm realizing now that I'm just gonna hit Command J here. Didn't get all of it. At school, they did a Lent thing, and they, as a fundraiser, purchased these little bracelets to remind them of what they had given up for Lent, and she didn't want to cut it off for the shoot. So, all right, I got that done. So here is my image. So the first thing that I'm going to do is in our skin collection, which I've already used, our skin smoothing. I like to use the airbrush skin. You can buy it separately, or it is in our, I'm going to flatten this, sorry, squirrel moment. It is in our bold collection. So I am going to use our under eye correct. I click OK, and I grab the dropper. She has a lot of freckles, so using the patch tool doesn't work for her because it puts freckles up under her eyes. So I'm just going to start by doing this, and then I can work it with frequency separation later, but I'm just going to start with this. And then because we have two different colors, because the light, I have camera right, I need to do it again. So I'm going to hit it again and hit continue. And then I'm going to grab a color here. So, I mean, you can see the significant difference in colors. We have to remember to click up here. I've done that so many times where I've used the other color. I don't know why it does that, but it does. So I'm just going under the eyes, and then I'm going to zoom out. Turn that off and on. I'm going to just drop that opacity a tad. And same with this. I'm going to drop it to about 30. All right, and again, I will work more with frequency separation later, but I just wanted to do that. All right, so then we are going to go to our new collection. So the first thing that we have are 3 fine art bases. So I'm just going to show you all of them, and then I'll tell you about my favorite one. So we have 2 different warm, and then a cool and a clean. So this is the first warm, on and off. Warm number 2 is my favorite, but it really just depends on the image, I guess. On the images that I was working with yesterday testing it, this one was definitely my favorite. So maybe not on this image. See, I don't like it as much as the stuff that I liked yesterday when I was playing with it. You can reduce the opacity, you can make it stronger, not as strong. I'm going to try the cool. Off and on. And then lastly, the clean. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. That one's adding in some clarity. I'm actually going to combine, I think, Fine Art Base 1 and this clean, and I'm going to see what I think about that, but I am going to drop the opacity a bit on this one. I was working on some images that were actually the same background, but different look yesterday, more of a like boho. And this warm number 2 was my go-to on all the images, but I'm not liking it as much on this. This is also, we had a week of 80-degree weather here in Wisconsin, so she had a bit of a tan, whereas here she hadn't seen sunlight since maybe October. So maybe that's why I'm not liking the number 2 as much. All right, so I'm going to leave this here, and then I'm just going to grab a screenshot. And then we work, so that's just the fine art base, and then we're going to work on our subject. So we have glowing skin, heirloom skin, adding contrast. So I'm just going to play them and show you what they do. And again, the wonderful thing is we don't have to flatten anything if you don't want to. So this is going to warm up the skin, and it's also going to add in some brightness. So you can choose to put this all over. You can choose to put it on the highlights. It's honestly whatever you want to do. So for right now, in an effort to show you this, and I really like this on her skin, I am going to put it over all of her skin. And if you would like to see if you've missed somewhere, you can just hit the backslash key, and then you can see if you've missed or gone over. Now, this is crazy looking, right? So I'm just going to, we're at 100%. I'm just going to, we can bring it down to 0 and then just bring it up to what you like. So it's really just going to give her skin like that subtle glow. And again, I'm still going to use Dodge and Burn, but that's just giving her. So you can choose, again, just certain areas, but I actually like it on all of the skin. So I'm going to leave it on all the skin. Heirloom skin. This is going to give more of a blue-gray. So this is something that you can use on your shadows. So as you can see, you wanted to put this on all of your skin. What that's going to do, turn it off and on. I can go up in here. So if you really want that pale skin, I'm not going to leave this on her. I'm just painting it on so that you can see. If you wanted that pale skin, off and on, but that's not the look I'm going for, so I'm not going to use it. If you would like to add some contrast to your skin, off and on, I can zoom in so that you can see off and on what that's doing. I'm not going to. I'm going to do some other stuff later. I absolutely love this action, whether you are in studio or outdoor. This is brighten subject. So it's going to take your subject only and it's going to brighten them, exactly what it says. But this is really great for background separation. It's also really, really great if you have a backlit photo. So I was playing with these on some images that I had taken outdoors where the sun was behind my subject. And if the sun is behind your subject, you know that many times you have dark shadows on your subject is just darker. And this is a really great one to do just that, pop your subject. So if I turn that off and on, I only have it at 14% right now because she had light shining directly on her. So I don't need it to be super bright. But again, if you have an image where your subject is in low light or backlit and you want to give them more light to the front of them, this is absolutely perfect. Pop the details. This action is included in our ultimate workflow as well, but it's going to just brighten up. So if I draw in the background here, I'm going to hit Command Z and take that off of there. But it's going to do just that if I wanted to brighten up her lips. So this is something where if I had like props in the background, I can brighten up the yellow on her dress. If I had props and really wanted to bring out the details of the props, for example, like the binding of books or wood grain, anything like that, that's where Pop the Details is amazing. So in an effort to save time, because I want to get through the whole collection, I'm going to stop, but I can turn this off and on and you can see what that's doing to the details on her dress. So for this particular image, there are not a ton of details to pop. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But that's one of my favorite actions, like especially for my Christmas mini sessions, to get all of those details or the lights and things like that in the back to pop. I adore this action. It is called Soft Glow. So if I turn this off and on, and it is doing just that. You can barely even tell, but it is just adding a soft glow to your subject. This painterly hair is not the same as our other painterly hair. I much prefer this one. It's lighter. It's not as like you applied an action to the hair action, if that makes sense. So I'm going to grab a white brush, and then I am going to paint this. Oh, I have to hit Command Z there. You have to click onto the black box with a white brush. And I am going to paint this on her hair. So as you can see, and if I zoom in, it's not doing a ton to the background, where our other action is just a little bit stronger than this one. So this is a really nice soft painterly hair action. And you can use it on things that are not hair as well if you want to soften them out. I am not going to. So if I zoom in on her and I turn this off and then back on, you can see what that is doing to her hair. All right. So we're done with this section. So I am going to grab a snapshot. In an effort to save time, because when we have so many open, things take longer to run, I'm going to flatten this, but you do not have to flatten. So the next thing that we have is the background. So the first one we have is change background color. This is going to be more if you are in a studio setting. So I chose this particular color because I wanted it on our background. And as you can see, sometimes the auto select is not going to select things perfectly, but it says open the change background group, which is right here in this folder, and double click on the background color layer to choose your background color. Adjust the opacity or change the blending mode for different effects. So I'm going to hit continue. So the first thing that I see is that I'm going to have to try to blend this a little bit. I've got my white brush here and I don't know why I'm not doing anything. Okay, so if I turn this off and on, you're seeing it's taken my subject, but it did not select perfectly. That's okay, we can blend it. So I opened it up, I'm double clicking on the background color. So if I like this deep tone and I don't like that color, I can just slide here and I can change my background to any color I want. So if you are shooting on like a savage gray, this is what you would want to do to change it to another color. Or it can be bright and I can change it to any color I want. So like I said, I specifically chose this color background because I liked it. But I'm just going to hit OK. And if I turn that off and on, you can see I've made it more green. Now, here's what it means by changing the blending mode. So now you can come up here to blending mode. Right now it's on color, and you can play with these as well. So the blending mode is going to change the color of your background as well. So I'm just going to click on each one so that you can see what it does. And I'm going to bring it back to color because I want it to be like a green. And then you can play with the opacity. So I need to fill this in here. So what I am going to do is I'm going to flatten this down and I'm going to hit Command J and I'm going to grab my clone tool and I'm just going to paint some of this in here. So her hair, she had little flyaways and that's why it didn't select perfectly. But you can easily just get in there. And I'm doing this quickly in an effort to save time, but you can just get in there and paint, and then I can just drop that opacity a tad. And if I turn that off and on, you can see that I was able to quickly remedy that problem. Okay, so the next one I have is enhance background. So I'm going to hit play, and it's going to do just kind of that. It's going to enhance your background, kind of like pop the details, but it's just working on your background. So again, this will work on a studio image or an outdoor image. So it has really, I love that. I love that deep green. And if you see up here, you can see it. There's some wrinkles up here. And the reason that I did not take that out before I started is because we're going to do that with the background blur. So we have a couple options for you. These are incredible. Hazy background blur. I'm going to play this. Just giving it a minute to think. This is why I flatten, because sometimes things go faster. Okay, it says open the blur background group, which again is the folder. You can adjust the opacity of the background blur layer to taste. You may also adjust the mask by painting with a black or white brush if Photoshop did not do a perfect job masking. So I hit continue. So if I turn this off and on, you can see in through here, it's blurred, and I don't want that blurred. So I'm first going to go in here. Oh, I need a brush, not a clone stamp tool. I'm grabbing a black brush, and I'm just going to paint over this. I'm just turning it on and off to see if there's any other areas that I'm going to leave it up here because it's actually taken all of those little hairs away. So it's also taken the texture away from me. So I am going to bring the opacity of this down a tad so you can see the background blur. And if you get banding, which sometimes you'll get if it's a solid color, it'll look like little lines and circles, you can use the reduce banding blur. So I am going to turn this one off and hit delete, and then I'm going to go to customized background blur and play that. So you have a few options here. This one's going to take a little bit, but what it does, it's worth the time. So it's going to give us 4 different blurs, a low, a medium high, and a high. So this is something where when you're in a studio setting, it's not going to be as big of a deal, but when you get to an outdoor setting, this is going to be huge. If you don't have compression in your lens, or you shot at a high f-stop, or whatever it may be, if you want that beautiful bokeh in the background, this will be a way to get that. If you did not get it in camera. So it says open the blur background group, which again is this little folder. Adjust the mask on the subject layer by painting with a black or white brush if Photoshop did not do a perfect masking job. Then you can choose low, medium high, or high background blur by turning on the visibilities. Or for a more natural background blur, use the blur layers masks to create gradually increasing blur. So I'm going to hit continue, and I'm going to click on the arrow to open it up, and the first thing I'm going to do is turn this off and on, and you can see it did not do a perfect job. So Command Z, I need a white brush, not a black brush. And I'm just going to click on here and take some of that off. Okay, but otherwise it looks pretty good to me. So low is already turned on, off and on, and if you don't like that, you can mask it or you can adjust the opacity. And then we have medium, off and on. Then we have medium high, off and on. And then we have high. So that's really gonna blur everything. So it's completely taken those lines away. I'm actually good with the low. So I am going to just drop that opacity a tad because I do still want to see the texture, but I do like that. So blur background, and again, I don't have banding, so I'm not going to run this, but if you do get banding, you can use that. Okay, I'm going to grab snapshot and we're going to color toning. So here is where you can play each one bright and clean. It's really going to do just that, brighten everything up, give you that real clean look. I love this action. I love a bright and clean image, so I am going to leave that on. Deep and moody. I can turn that off and then on. I'm going to leave that one off for now. Vintage green. So that's really going to pop that background and make things, it's really enhancing our greens. I'm going to hit Command I and invert that. And I'm going to paint this just on her dress, making those greens pop. Aged to perfection. Turning that off and on. And this would be great if you had like a darker gray background, so you can see when I turn that off and on what that does. Canvas touch. Again, you gotta adjust the opacity, but that's bringing some clarity and brightness into your image as well. If you want a sepia, and then lastly, a soft matte. So I am not going to use any of those except for the bright and clean. So I'm going to grab a snapshot from this session. And then we get into different types of contrast. So we have the basic contrast. So that is going to add, oops, I don't want it twice. Just that basic contrast to your image. I love me some contrast, but the golden contrast and soft glow. Here's soft glow contrast. I may have hit this one twice. I think that's why it's still thinking. Nope. Okay, so turn that off and back on. So it's doing just that, giving a glow. Golden contrast. I use this one on almost every image. I love what it does to the skin. I'm just going to drop the opacity. We have rich golden contrast. We have golden spot, which is really going to bring that spotlight onto your image. We have a matte contrast, off and on. We have golden matte. I am going to leave this one on just a tad. And then we have, if you really want to, I'm going to zoom in here so you can see. We have flatten contrast. So this is going to flatten, really blur everything out or soften. So if I turn this off, watch her hair, and back on, that's softening out some of the contrast. So I'm going to put a layer mask on this and hit Command I to invert it. And I am going to paint this. My brush is at 50% right now, a little bit just on the hair here, because I like the softness on the hair, but I don't want it on the rest of her. Okay, then we have image adjustments. So I'm going to grab a snapshot from here. Dodge, burn, and glow. I'm going to play that. So the first thing I'm going to do is burn. I'm going to bring my brush down, or my flow down, to like a 3. And I'm just going to burn my shadows. So in an effort to save time, because this is really just to showcase what we have in the package, not necessarily a full-blown start to finish edit, I am going to do this very, very quickly. Typically, I do several layers of dodging and burning. All right. So global means like if I want to put burning like into the folds of her dress, typically that would be done at a little bit higher. So I can go through and do that, and the same with dodging. I, on my background, like to use pop, the color, rather than dodging. All right, so then we have glow. I'm going to put this back at 3, and I'm going to run this and bring some light and some glow onto her face. I like to bring the light under the eye and the chin. Again, we're doing this very, very quickly. Okay, and I am going to drop that down just a tad so we can see what the dodging and burning has done to the image. Auto burn and auto dodge, it's going to just darken and lighten the image. So I can play auto burn. So it's going to take your shadows and it's going to darken them for you. And then auto dodge is going to take your lighter areas and it's going to brighten them. So I am going to take that off because I don't want it. And then there's auto glow as well. And that is going to bring a glow. So if you wanted to drop that way down, I already did that by hand, so I'm not going to. We have brighten a touch. So if you're looking at your image and it just seems a little dark, or the opposite, darken a touch. So I like this one. I am going to bring the opacity down, and then I'm going to grab a black brush at about 50-60%. And I'm going to take it off of her skin and hair. So this is just another way of really making your subject pop off the background. I'm going to hit my backslash key. I'm just looking here. Okay. We can add some saturation, just a tad. I like to do this in small increments when I'm doing my edits, off and on. As you can see, that really brings some warmth into her skin. Or if it's too saturated, you can desaturate a touch and play with that. You can decrease the highlights. Sometimes in a studio image, you get the highlights that are a little bit too bright, so this is really great for that. So I've decreased my highlights. I don't want to do that. and you can do the same thing by increasing the shadows. So I am going to grab a snapshot here, and then we have finalized. So we have vignettes, and then we have a sharpen. We have a sharpen for Facebook and a sharpen for Instagram. So this image for me would not be done. I would go into our frequency separation. So I'm going to flatten this in an effort to make it go a little bit faster. And I would run our frequency separation and then add the non-destructive edit layers. And I'm good with the texture. I'm just going to go to this blur and grab a mixer brush. I have everything set around 20%. And I would just work on the skin and smoothing the skin a little bit more. Filling in this, she always gets this little white patch here. Tame down that highlight a little bit and bring a little light over here. So I haven't done anything as far as eyes or adding in like any cheeks or anything, which we will also do. So if I turn that off and on, you can see it's just kind of blended her skin together a little bit more. So I'm going to flatten that out. And then I am going to go into our ultimate workflow, and I am going to run our eye actions. You can also purchase these separately in an eye pack. I'm just going to quickly, with a white brush, not a black, brighten her eyes. And then the eye whiten. And I always like to use adjust the eye color. And because this image is primarily green, I'm going to put more greens into her eyes and then drop this way down. And then I am going to sharpen her eye, just the iris. And then I'm going to bring that out and turn that off and on. Okay, this is a little bit bright here, so I'm going to go into there and drop that down. I've already done the hair, so I'm just going to go to cheeks, lips, and teeth. I accidentally played it within this one. That's fine. Twice. So I'm going to click on cheeks. And add a little bit of color in here. And if you don't like that color, just like how you change the background color, you can click on here and pick whatever you like. I'm good with this color. And then the lips, same thing. Again, I'm going fast so that this doesn't take an hour and a half. And then I am going to add in a little bit more glow here with the all over glow. Now we're starting to come together. All right, so we've done our eyes, we've done our all over glow. One thing that I always add to my eyes are our eyelashes. So you can just do layer, new layer, and hit OK. And I can go to my brush set, and we have all kinds of eyelashes to choose from. These are actually Kinley's lower lashes. If your model doesn't have black, you can choose the eyedropper tool and then go to the brush tool, and then you'll have a closer match. Grab her other one. And my brush right now is at 58%. And then we'll pick an upper lash. These are my favorite for her. I'm just using my bracket key to make them larger and smaller. All of these eyelashes are included with our eye actions in our eye collection. So worth it. We have so many awesome eye things. So if I turn that off and on, you can see how that really just opens up her eyes. I am going to drop that opacity on there just a smidge. All right. Let me back this up and take a look at it. So I'm seeing a lot of yellow. So I could go to our color toning and look at what we have there. For example, we have winter, which if I run winter, it's going to add in a significant amount of blue, which in matte and white, which I really don't want to do that. I like the deep contrast. So what I'm going to do is simply do, I am looking for cool down, which is in our final touches. And I can turn that on. I actually like to click on here and use the bottom cooling filter on Kinley's skin. And if I drop it way down, turn that off and on, it's just going to bring a little bit of coolness into her skin. I'm going to drop it down even further to like a 7. Okay, then I am going to flatten this down and then hit Command J, and I'm going to turn the blending mode to luminosity, and I'm going to do some very, very quick. So again, we have these as actions, but in an effort to save time, I'm just going to go through very quickly here and do a little bit more dodging and burning. I'm going to hit Command Z. I don't like that. And I can grab my dodge tool. Okay, I am going to grab a snapshot. So the image started here. That was after I did the liquefying of her buns and everything. And then here's with the color pops, background blur and changing the color. Working on more color toning. Here's where we're adding in some of the highlighting and the dodging and the burning. And then this is our final, when I went through and used our frequency separation, our eye actions, and then our lips and our cheeks. So again, from this to this. Here's where I started. And again, here I had already used our skin smoothing action as well to here. So if you are looking to get that beautiful fine art image, if you're looking to take those outdoor photos to the next level, this Heirloom collection is absolutely perfect in addition to some of our other collections. We hope you love it.